I'm very happy to meet all of you, and I hope I can stand up to the words of praise that were given to me even before I spoke. The subject given to me is the true self. Who am I really? I would like to discuss the appropriateness of the question itself. Is it a real question? Is it my question? Do we ever really turn around to ourselves and ask, who am I? If you look within your own mind, you will find that most of us are sure who we are. If somebody says, who are you? Immediately I give my name, my surname, my country, my nationality, my qualifications, the name of my parents. This is how I know myself. So where does this question come from? Who am I? Is it a question that is imposed on us by some thinkers, ancient people? If it is so, then it doesn't really belong to me, to us as ordinary people. Or is there any way of understanding that the question is mine, but I just happen not to put it in so many words? I believe that this question, who am I, was asked in ancient Greece, in ancient India, in the most precise manner, very logically put. And if you go back to Greece, to Socrates, I believe he used to ask this to everyone he could find, because he liked to define terms. He thought it was very necessary to be able to understand what exactly we were talking about. But as I said, when we turn to ourselves and ask, do I ever ask, who am I? Ordinarily, we never do. How does the question arise? Usually, it comes in the form of some kind of suffering. I become aware suddenly that my own system is suffering in a way that I am too uncomfortable. If I realize it's the body, I usually go to a doctor, to a physician, because I believe he knows something about my body. If it is something deeper, we usually do not know who to go to. In today's culture, we have many physicians of the mind, or we think that there are people who understand a little more about the mind than I do, and we go to such people. But it has been a time-honored practice with humanity to turn to somebody who is connected in some way or the other to religion. And we like to ask, this is my problem, I am suffering, give me something, some consolation. And it's very strange when you study the popular religions of the world that they do not really tell me that there is any problem with yourself. They try to divert my attention to the term God. They say, well, all that you need to know is something about God, and that will solve your problem. Or they try to give an answer in a very strange way. In Christianity it was said, well, your problem is very deep. It is connected with something called the original sin, and that is what is bothering you. And it is too difficult to understand. Let me, the priest, make it simple for you. I will explain the word of God. What you need to know is that God is merciful, He is compassionate, and He has sent this Son of God to look after us or to give us salvation. But it is too difficult for you to understand the words of God. Therefore, let me do the understanding, let me do the asking, and you just rest with what I tell you to do. If you look at the story of religions in almost every country, this has been the answer given. There is something wrong. They always make us aware that there is something wrong. Either they will say, well, there is some wickedness that nobody can really explain. But the problem is that to me, when the question arises, I am not really bothered about wickedness within myself. I am bothered about suffering and wickedness around me. So the question to most of us comes in the form of, what is this universe and why is it the way it is? It never usually comes, why am I what I am? And again, if you study the philosophies of the ancient world, it's in India that you find a philosophy called the philosophy of Vedanta, which has maybe, in the most precise language, told man, the problem is you do not know who you are. They do talk about God, personal and impersonal. They do talk about many other things, many practices. You have to do this, you have to do that. But in a very precise manner, they try to divert our attention to the fact that there is something very strange. I live in this system. I think of this system as myself. I know that I am the body. I feel the body in such an intense manner. I know that there are thoughts. I am aware of them. And yet, here is this ancient sage telling me, the only problem is you do not know who you are. From there, let us go to the other question. What is all this? We are more aware of the world around us than about ourselves. When do we become aware of ourselves? When there is a problem. Most of the time the body is perfectly fine. I am not aware of it. Let there be some kind of a pain somewhere, and immediately I become aware that the body exists, most of the time. But we are always aware of the world around us. And the world presents terrible problems. It's too complicated. It is too full of multiplicity. We are asked to understand it. We are asked to live within it, find our own position, find some kind of security, a means of livelihood, live with other people of diverse nature, adjust ourselves at every moment. So most of us are absolutely sure that if there is a problem, it's a problem of the world. It cannot be my problem. And this has become very prominent in the Western world from the Greek times, which is about 2,500 years ago. These philosophers were talking about these problems in the days when Buddhism was born in India. The Buddha is 500 BC, and you will find that Socrates and other philosophers are talking about these problems in Greece at the same time. But with the grand disciple of Socrates, with Aristotle, you find that he turns it to the world and says, what is all this is very important. I must understand the world I live in. And from there, it has shifted to finding out what is this world. Now we can say almost 2,500 years have passed, and we ask this question, what is all this? How is it that we don't get the answer? How is it that till today we have been searching, human beings have been searching, and great thinkers have been born in the West, great scientists, and almost every one of them does say something about the world. How is it that till today I still feel that the world is very strange? I cannot make head or tail out of it. It's not something very simple. Why is it? Because it's very important to understand that humanity has been trying to understand the nature of the world for the last 2,500 years in a systematic manner, and yet the answer is not complete. So what is the problem? The problem is that the deeper you go into the material world, which is given to us in our experience, the more complicated it seems to become. There was a time when people studied philosophy. Philosophy was called wisdom. People were supposed to study something and become wise. There were some people who were wise and they could enlighten us. Then by the time you come to Aristotle, he has divided this search into the search of the physical world, and it came to be called biology, physics, chemistry. Then you come to the modern time. Can I take a subject like biology? They will say, oh no, that is not there. But you can have, I don't even know the names. The deeper you go, the more it seems to branch off into greater and greater detail. We started with a simple question, what is all this? And we come back with making it more and more complicated. By the time we stand here at this time, if I want to understand anything about the human, let us say, human body or the material world, they will say, well, you can handle only this much because the information about even this much of this world is so much that you cannot afford to cover it in one lifetime. So what has happened? Are we learning more and more, or are we learning less and less? It seems to me there was a time when the doctors seemed to know the whole of my body. I went to a doctor and said, well, I seem to have a pain in my stomach. He took my pulse, as it happens in India even now. He took the pulse and he asked me a few questions and then prescribed the medicine. Today I go to a hospital, let us say in US, I have the same kind of problem. He says, well, first you have to have examinations. How many examinations? Nobody knows. The whole body has to be examined, and at the end of that, even then, nobody is sure that the diagnosis will be absolutely correct. So what is happening? The deeper I go into the basic nature of the reality outside myself, the more complicated it seems to become, the more difficult it becomes, the more invisible it becomes. There was a time when a simple stethoscope was enough. Today it is not enough. There are these electronic gadgets with which they will test my blood, they'll test all kinds of things which are invisible to me, and I don't understand anything at all. Now, if the nature around me, which is visible, has taken 2,500 years for me to understand a little bit that I do understand, should it be more difficult or less difficult when we turn the question around and ask, who am I? These are the two directions. There is a direction outside. We have asked this question, what is this? How does it function? What is this world? How does it function? And the answers are millions. You can take up any one branch and maybe at the end of 30 years become very good in your own branch, but the rest of the branches of knowledge I know absolutely nothing about because it is too complicated. If this is the case, I understand maybe a little bit that the search for the question of what is this is not so simple. It is complicated. Is it the scientist who is making it more complicated, or is the nature of reality such that the deeper you go, the more complicated it becomes? This is a question that physicists are trying to answer today. They have come to a level where they seem to find tremendous simplicity. They say everything in the universe is made of energy. Energy is same, homogeneous, but the manifestation of energy is tremendously complicated. And what about the laws? They are also very difficult to understand. You have to study physics, you have to study mathematics, you have to study so many things before you can even get to understand anything. So then come round to this other problem. Who am I? A great thinker asks the question, who am I? And to me, a lay person, the question is absolutely illogical. What are you asking about? I know what I am, I know who I am the body, and with a little difficulty I can understand that there is an inside to the body which I am aware of, directly aware of. When I look at you, I get only the body, but when I look at myself from within, I know that there is something else. I am aware of it. So that should solve the problem. Why isn't it enough for me to know that I am the body? The problem is, I can see that I am the body somehow, but there are certain things that happen to the body which I cannot accept. Why not? If I am the body, if that is the reality, and if that is my basic identification, why can't I accept certain things that happen to the body? What are these things that happen to the body? Change. I feel I am something that does not change. The person who said I yesterday and the person who says I today seems to be one and the same person. I am somehow one and the same person. And yet you go to a physician or go to a doctor or go to any scientist today and ask, well, is my body the same as it was when I was born? And he'll laugh. He'll say, what are you talking about? Every 7 years, every cell in your body undergoes complete change. So what is it that I am saying to myself? I am the same person? Is it possible for me to say I am the same person and yet digest this knowledge that every 7 years, every cell in my body is undergoing change? So am I the name of a stream of changes? Is it possible for me to accept it? Is it possible for me to say, well, what does it matter? I am just a process. I am just nothing but a bundle of cells. These cells seem to function together in a very unified manner, and they give me some kind of a feeling of being the same person. So where is the problem? The problem is there is something within each one of us which just does not accept it. To me, I am real. And what is the characteristic of reality? Reality is something that does not change. So ask anyone, what is it that you would call real? Real is something that does not change. And here is this problem. I want to be the same, I know I am the same, and yet when I ask this body, are you the same? It says, no, I am not the same. So the problem, the way I am putting it, it does not come to us in exactly the same way. These are the words that are given to us, again by the thinker. How does the world come to me? I don't see any energy, I don't see any homogeneous anything behind this universe. And yet I have to go to a great thinker, a great scientist, and he tells me, well, what you see with your eyes, take it with a pinch of salt. Because what you see is not what is shown by these electronic, whatever, microscopes or whatever they are. And that is the base of reality. And this, what you are seeing with your eyes and ears and feeling, well, this is just something that comes through the sense organs, but this is not the ultimate truth about this reality. And when I turn to myself and say, who am I? Exactly the same thing seems to happen. How does the question come? I told you before, it comes when I suffer. To most of us, this search does not come as a direct search. We are not looking for reality. I am not born with the idea that I have to search for reality within myself. We are mostly born with the idea that the outside world is real and my attention is directed to that. I am searching for a little happiness there, here, there, and unless I get a blow, most of us don't even ask any deeper question. But unfortunately or fortunately, suffering comes to everyone. So in between is the level of faith. When you come to suffering, then you come to somebody, some religion, and you ask the question, there seems to be something wrong with me, please tell me how to get out of it. And every religion has tried to give the answer on faith. Have faith, there is a meaning in life. Just have faith that there is a God. He is compassionate. Though the world seems very wicked, yet there is something, there is some compassion in this world, but take it on faith and don't ask any questions. Now this not asking questions was not the way this Vedanta psychology grew. There at every level the question was asked, and the question became changed in a very different way by putting it in these words, who am I? It is because you do not know who you are that there is so much confusion. If you only knew that you are permanent, that you are real in your depth, but when you put this idea, superimpose this idea on the body, you are making a mistake, and therefore there is terrible confusion. It is a confusion of superimposition. You are saying you are permanent, then you want to say the body is permanent, and that does not hold good, because the body can never be permanent. It undergoes all kinds of changes. It was born, it will develop, it will grow, it will have disease, it will decay, it will die. But what about me? There seems to be something separate. I seem to understand that I am real in a very unique way, and I want to assert that, but the only way I know how to assert it is by pointing to the body and saying that I am real, this is real. So supposing with tremendous difficulty, I understand, yes, the body cannot be real because scientists have proved it. They say that, well, the body is rebuilt every 7 years and there are new cells. I am not the same cells I was born with. Then we come to the mind, something which we understand very directly. I am aware of my thoughts, and I try to get hold of my thoughts and say, well, here is my identity. And unfortunately, each one of us is aware. I don't have to go and ask anyone. I don't have to read any book. I do not have to consult any physician. Each one of us is aware that the mind changes even more than the body. At least the body I am not aware of. The cells change, well, it's only the doctor who knows it, the physician who knows it, but I directly know that the thoughts I had in the morning are not the same that I have in the evening. The emotion that I had yesterday is not the same emotion I have today. So change, or something like a flux, is something that is given to our awareness the moment I turn to something to hold on to within myself. Then what do? We go deeper than that. I hold on to memories. I believe that I have a personality. I am a person. What is a person? A person is a combination of the physical and mental. The physical is the body. At least the form seems to be the same. It does not change overnight. Therefore, more or less I can say, well, I am somehow the same person. Then I turn to my thoughts, and my daily thoughts change almost every other hour. And then I go deeper and I say, I have found it. My memory is my basic identification. I hold on to my memories, and we are holding on to these memories in such a strange way in today's civilization. We record and record and record so that I can have the final proof that I am something real. There was a time when there was no photography, and we used to resort to paintings. I get my face painted, so that is a kind of record that I am this person. Today it's very easy. I can make records of my daily life almost every day, from the time I am born till the time comes to go away. I can have a whole record and say, well, this is what I am. But the unfortunate thing is that it does not hold good. I look at my memory and I try to present it to another person, and I say, well, look, I am so real. Listen to my life story. And what do I find? The other person is not interested. Why not? Because to that person, my memory is absolute fiction. It's not real enough. I cannot show my memories. I cannot show my experiences. So again, there is this baffling position where I try to show that I am a person living within this system. I am very real. I have these memories, and the bundle of this memory makes my life, and that is what matters most to me. And I present it to the Maybe I present it to my own husband or wife or sister or brother or son or daughter, and even they refuse to believe that this could be something very real. It seems to be such a baffling position. So what is happening? Is it, there seem to be just two alternatives. Either come to terms by saying that, well, the whole thing is an illusion. There is nothing. There is nothing permanent within yourself. Have you decided about the world? The scientists say, well, we are still going deeper. We are still doing it. 2,500 years of research is not enough. We are still going deeper, and maybe one day we will come with the final answer and tell you whether the world is real or not. Right now, it seems to be like this. So I turn to religion. Religion says, just have faith, don't ask uncomfortable questions. Then I turn to this ancient psychology. I have not found these answers anywhere else. And this psychology says, well, your problem is that you are superimposing something on something else. You are real. I am real. And that is what I want to hear. That is what I want to be confirmed by the world at large, and finally by myself in the depth of my own consciousness. I want to feel, I want to realize, I want to know, yes, I am real. Because I know in a very strange way that till I get hold of something permanent, I will not be able to get out of this terrible situation where I want to prove I am real, and the whole world stands up and says, well, what does it matter? You can go tomorrow, and it does not matter anything to anyone. So this is the only philosophy, or you can call it religion. Religion is nothing but trying to put some ideas into practice, and these ideas were given to common people in India to be put in practice. They have tried their level best. Sometimes they have failed and sometimes they have succeeded, but the ideas are still there waiting and challenging everyone to take them up and try and prove to themselves whether there is a deeper reality or not. So when I ask the question, who am I? The answer given by Vedanta psychology is, you are the Atman. They gave one word. Atman can be translated as self. You are the self. What does it mean? They say it's very simple. Just look at yourself. You seem to be on one side and your experience seems to be on the other side. You are experiencing this world and you know that it is separate from you. I pick up a watch and I say, well, this is my watch, but I don't become the watch. I know very well that it is something separate. Then I come to the body. Is the same law, does it apply to the body and me also? They say exactly the same thing is happening. You and your body are also separate. How do you get hold of your body? It comes to you in your experience. How does it come to me in my experience? Lift up any book on physiology today and they will tell you, within this system, within this body, there is a skeleton. Within the skeleton, in the spinal column, there is this, what they call the nervous system. And this nervous system is spread all over the body, and you are getting the news about the body through this nervous system. You are not getting the body directly. You can never be the body because you are receiving it, just as you are receiving information about this watch. How do I get it? Through the eyes. I look at it, there is some light which is reflected somewhere in the nervous system. Something is happening, nobody is very sure about it, but I know this much, that I pay attention to this information and then I come to the conclusion, this is a watch, it is separate from me. It is black, it's long, whatever, it's round. How do I come to my body? In exactly the same way. Through the nervous system, you are getting the sensations of the body all the time, and these sensations are traveling to some place in the nervous system. So what about me? Where am I? This is where they say, well, do you realize that you could not be the body? You are receiving these sensations. And if I am receiving these sensations through the nervous system, I must be very deeply connected with the nervous system, but I cannot be the nervous system because I pay attention. I pay attention to the sensations and I finally come to the conclusion, well, I have a body. How can you prove it? Very easy. Cut the nerve. From here, there is a nerve joining the hand to the rest of the body. Cut the nerve, the hand may be there, you won't feel the presence of the hand at all. Supposing you say, well, I may not feel the presence of the hand, but my eyes show me, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. Nerves are functioning and nerves are giving me these messages. I pay attention to them. So I become invisible immediately. I am paying attention, sitting where? Nobody really knows. But it definitely proves that I am not the body. I am not the thoughts either. The same thing. How do I get my thoughts? Through the nervous system. They are away from me. I look at them. I can hear them. Anything that I can present as my own experience has to be separate from me. And if it is separate from me, there is no need to confuse myself with my own experience. But yes, the problem is very, very deep. It is very subtle. I am not used to this way of thinking, and nobody has educated me how to understand this separation, but no problem. The moment I hear it, I can test it. I can test the logicality of these ideas. I can try and understand whether these are cock and bull stories or whether there is some reality. And the moment my mind says, well, they cannot be cock and bull stories, get hold of the method of separation, separate yourself, find out who you really are, and that is the end to the whole problem, because till I know myself, I cannot know my real nature. And of course they say you are Satchit Ananda, which means you exist, nothing else can exist, you exist. You are full of knowledge, you are wisdom itself, and you are also full of bliss. Now, right now, it sounds again like a cock and bull story, because I compare it with my daily experience, and I know that I have my doubts about my existence. I know that everybody is dying around me, so a day will come when this body will also go. Then the next, I am full of wisdom. Well, it is challenged at every step. People seem to not to believe that I am full of wisdom. And the third one is that I am full of bliss. My own mind says, well, that's also doubtful. So how do either I take it seriously and try and go within and prove to myself that these are not cock and bull stories, or I say, well, after all, this world is a very strange place. People have said very strange things. Let me get back to my daily life. No need to pay more attention to these ideas at all. The choice is mine.